Thank you so much for tuning in to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. Today we want to show you, my wife will show you how to make Chipa Paraguaya. That's a Spanish from Paraguay, a nice food. It's a local thing. People really like it there, and my wife is one of the experts. She makes it, for me, better than the Paraguayans itself. That's amazing, that food. So I hope you will enjoy this few minutes here with us. I will turn it over to my wife and she will show you how to make Paraguayan Chipa Paraguaya.
Yes, about 28 years ago when we got married, we went to Paraguay for the first time and I was introduced to Chipa. And I loved it because it was something that you could take along and eat along on a trip. It's more like a snack food. That's how our family enjoys it. But in Paraguay, most people will enjoy eating it with a barbecue or just taking it along. And yeah, it's just something that we enjoy eating, and it's gluten-free. So that's another reason why our family really enjoys this particular snack from Paraguay. So to start off, I mix everything in my KitchenAid because I love it. It's fast and it whips up the eggs quite nicely and adds a lot of air to them. So I'm going to put my eggs in now, and 6 eggs goes into this recipe for 24 Chipa.
So, and I will hold this little GoPro here and do some close-up ones so that you can see how it looks like. And this is our special little camera, and I hope that you will be able to see it nice, how my wife is mixing it all up here.
So now to the 6 eggs, I add a cup of milk. This is a very simple recipe and can be easily done with whatever ingredients you have at home, but you have to have eggs. The basic is eggs, milk, cheese, and oil, and whatever flavoring you want to add. Typically in Paraguay you add anise seed. Our son, who has been gluten-free for about 4 years, prefers if I add garlic salt, and makes it more like of a garlicky taste. But I'm going to do it the real way, the way they do it in Paraguay, which is with anise seed. So 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of oil, 6 eggs, and 2 teaspoons of salt. And then anise seed, I actually don't measure. I like to do everything just whatever. So I'm just going to add it in what I think it needs to be. Okay, turn on the mixer with the whipping thing on it, and away it goes. I mix this for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Until it gets nice and fluffy. While this is mixing up, I just want to share a little bit about different ways of making chipa. In Paraguay, they make it really hard so that it can be left on the shelf, that it can be taken with you, and then it's more of a crunchy thing. We like it chewy. So I add less flour to it. It's tapioca starch, or like a mandioca flour that goes into here, and it's a very typical flour for Paraguay. So I always make it less. So when the recipe calls for 2 cups, I would use 1.5, just to make it more doughy.
You know, it's really interesting. I remember when I grew up, my mom always had her recipe and measurement. 1 handful of this, and 2 hands full of that.
And a pinch of this, and a pinch of that.
And that's how she had her recipe measured. And I tell you.
And this is exactly how I do this. So this is finished as much as I'm going to do. Normally I would do it another extra couple of minutes, but it doesn't really matter. I like them nice and airy. So I will now go and get the cheese, and I always do my own grated cheese, whatever I have, whatever I've got on hand. So this is mozzarella, but you can use anything. If you've got marble on hand, use marble. If you've got cheddar, use cheddar. And again, I didn't measure this, but it's supposed to be approximately 2 cups of cheese. And I know that just by how much is in my grater, that I'm at approximately 2 cups of cheese. Here, where our local store, we can buy tapioca starch. This is 1 kilo, or sorry, no, 454 grams, so half a kilo. So I know that I need, the recipe calls for 1 kilo, so I put the entire bag in. So I don't even measure. It just, the whole thing just goes right in there. And it's quite messy, it's very powdery. So when you're mixing it, it can get pretty messy around the machine. And if you don't have a machine like this, this is okay. You can mix it by hand, or you can use beaters or whatever you want. My sister-in-law, she does everything by hand. She would mix this whole thing up by hand, but why when you've got a machine? So now, typically you would put 2 bags in here for this recipe, and this makes a more harder dough, but I like it softer, or my whole family likes it softer. So I'm just going to use half of this. So I'm just kind of pinch it somewhere in the middle and add half. So I know I've used approximately half of this bag, so I think I'm good to go. And I can tell if this is what I want, the consistency, by when it's mixed up. Now this is going to get powdery. Careful. So I try and cover it up, try and get it as much as possible, keep it in the machine. There. So this looks pretty much what I like it to be. It looks a little bit wet, but still thick enough that I can pour it into my mold. So if you would add the whole container, the bag of tapioca starch in here, you would actually be able to handle it with your hands, roll it, cut it up, and bake it into smaller pieces if you want. But my family likes a chunk. They like a larger amount of chipa at one time. I put them in a muffin tin. This isn't typically how it's done in Paraguay, but it's how my family enjoys it. So I use the cooking spray to put in the pans. I used to use just plain oil, but I don't like to use oil anymore. It's just harder. So I just, a little spray in every single pan, and this recipe will fill 24 of these. So I would take this and put approximately 1 tablespoon into each one. .350-degree oven that's hot already, and I put them both in at the same time. One toward one side and the other toward the other. You bake it for 30 to 35 minutes. It depends on your oven, whether or not it's going to, you just have to keep an eye on it. They need to be golden brown and puff up. So we'll show you the product afterwards. They're now ready to take out. We'll take them out of the oven. See how they've puffed up really nice?
Wow. That looks very good. Wow, that's awesome. Look at that.
Now, they need to come out right away. If you leave them in the pan, they will start sticking onto the side of the pan. So I just take them out like this. They're hot, but yeah, we can't necessarily eat it right now. We do need at least 10 minutes or so for it to cool off because they're just way, way, way too hot. And you can't leave these out too long, otherwise they get hard in the middle because it's gluten-free. Gluten-free flours are a little bit more difficult to work with, and they taste great, but they get hard right away, whereas regular flour the next day it probably would still be fairly fresh. So I take these, once they've cooled off, I put them in the freezer, and then when you are done and want to eat them the next day or a week or two later, take 1 or 2 out of the freezer, put it in the microwave for a few minutes, 30 seconds, and they're as good as fresh out of the oven. I think that what I will do is I will add the recipe at the end, just typed in, so you can actually get it right off of the YouTube channel.
Perfect. Have a good one. Blessings to you.